Hey soccer fans, this is Nick reminding you to check out Sports Spider. If you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, SportsSpider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as updated as possible on the Chicago Fire or any other team, hit the link in the description to check out SportsSpider.com. Hey soccer fans, welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I'm your host, Nick, and in this episode, I want to touch on a few different things happening around the American soccer landscape. We'll quickly touch on MLS All-Star Week. We will look a little bit at Leagues Cup. We got some comments on Extra Time, Major League Soccer's official podcast, from Matt Doyle about where each club is and what he expects them to do. So I want to comment on some of the things he said about the Chicago Fire, and then we'll just quickly look at the Olympics schedule for the men and the women here. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. No housekeeping, all content on this quick episode. It was Major League Soccer All-Star Week. We saw the concert with Marshmello and Pink Panthers to kick things off. You saw all the training and the videos and kind of the little personal interest stories. And I gotta say, that was one of my favorite things throughout this All-Star Week, was seeing the little player interviews, getting them away from kind of the strict training regimen, I don't want to say the professionalism, because it's not like they weren't being professional, but that very, very structured professional training regimen, media day, formulated questions, what are you going to do on the pitch? It was kind of a lighter side of things, and I enjoyed seeing that. I liked the little interview of Darlington Nagbe during the game. I liked seeing the pictures of the MLS and Liga MX All-Stars embracing and catching up with old friends and former teammates and opponents and things of that nature. It was nice to see, and the All-Star Skills Challenge really just shows you how talented a group of players have come to play in Major League Soccer and Liga MX. And despite Liga MX getting the best of Major League Soccer in the Skills Challenge and in the All-Star Game, I think it was a great week to kind of showcase the talent, give a little something extra to the fans, and I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. A lot of people have very, very serious and really opinionated takes on All-Star games. Now, I think NFL, NBA, those All-Star games are trash just because nobody actually cares to play the game. I think the MLS All-Star game, they do play it a little bit. The crushing tackles, the speed and the pace are not there. You did see a couple yellow cards, though, just because the referee still's got to do his job. I would have liked to see that PK awarded to the MLS in the first half. You saw Luciano Acosta, the FC Cincinnati star and captain of the team. He was ready to let Cucho take that PK, but it was called back on VAR review. Like, I would like to see those moments and have those crowd moments and fan moments. But you know what? I think the MLS All-Star game against Liga MX does a good job about having a little bit of that competition. It still is more of a real game than it is an exhibition match at a certain level, and I enjoy it. But it's fun, right? I'm not going to look into this and say, oh, this is terrible, this is garbage, we shouldn't have it, it's a waste of time, fixture congestion, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to not be the old crabby old man for once telling these soccer players to get off my lawn and take their ball and go home. It's a fun thing. And you even saw it from a lot of the content creators and the media personalities who cover these leagues. They're all having fun with it too, and that really does kind of convey something. So I hope you all got to enjoy seeing some of your favorite players and seeing some of the big names of both these leagues out there. A little bummed that we didn't get a call up for Chris Brady or Hugo Kuipers. By the way, speaking of Chris Brady call-ups, there's a lot going on social media that Chris Brady would have done a much better job playing on the U.S. Olympic team than Patrick Schulte's performance in their 3-0 loss to France. And I saw a lot of people out there saying, like, well, the defense let him down, and Schulte down, and those French players, they're so good, they score that all the time in France. There was no goalkeeper stopping that. Well, to be perfectly honest, Chris Brady is constantly let down by his defense by the Chicago Fire, still comes up with big saves, and you might say that you've seen these French players score those goals 100 times. I've seen Chris Brady make those saves 100 times. So I really do think that it was a tragedy that Chris Brady was left off the Olympic roster and the All-Star roster, and I think he probably would have outplayed Schulte and Berkey in those matches. Regardless, we are where we are, and for whatever my opinion is worth in the great universe of American soccer and on the internets, right? Okay, so All-Star recap, that is done. The MLS is now going to focus, along with Liga MX, their attention onto the Leagues Cup. And as we know, the Leagues Cup is a tournament between every MLS and every Liga MX team. They're all in one tournament. This actually started back in 2019. That was the first Leagues Cup tournament. It has gone on each year since then, other than the pandemic year of 2020. And in 2022, they didn't have a formal Leagues Cup due to the Olympics and the additional matches that the players were playing. They ended up having a Leagues Cup showcase that year, where it was just kind of like random matches around the country. So Leagues Cup is now back in full force. It has a new format. Every year they're saying, it's a new format, it's a new format. But the way they're doing it this year is they took the teams in Liga MX and MLS, put them into 3 tiers based on where they finished in their league standings the prior season. You had Tier 1, teams that finished 1st through 15th. Tier 2, teams that finished in the 16 to 30th range. And then Tier 3, teams that finished 31 to 45. So essentially your top, middle, and bottom thirds of each league were put into their various tiers or pots, if you're thinking of it in like a World Cup draw. And then you took a team out of each tier. And in the case of the Chicago Fire, Toluca is their Tier 1 club, Sporting Kansas City was the Tier 2 club, and yes, the Chicago Fire were the Tier 3 club, the bottom club in that group. So that is how things were picked this year. And again, the competition will take place in the United States at the various stadiums, or in the U.S., nothing in Mexico at this time, though it seems to be like that's the way it's going, and a lot of people are crying for it. 1, out of fairness to the Mexico teams, and 2, for fans in Mexico to be able to see these things. And I really do think that's the way it's going to go. If MLS wants to use this to make money and expand its footprint and get new fans throughout North America, then it will need to play some games in Mexico. I hope that the Mexico stadiums are ready to support this tournament and ready to have the proper security and personnel in places for that, and allowing the international travel. That is always a challenge, going in and out of different countries. So from a borders perspective, I guess, from a visa perspective, I guess once the teams get into the United States, it's a lot easier just to stay here for a couple, 3 weeks than to be traveling back and forth. But that's the way they have it, though that's the way I think it is going to go. Eventually teams will be playing in Mexico. So here's a few things to keep in mind for that. Following the group stage, you've got groups of 3. There are 4, 1, 2, 3, 12, 34, 15 groups of 3. Yep, math, not my strong suit. Plus you had Club America and the Columbus Crew automatically getting a bye round out of the group stage as the defending champions of their respective leagues. And so after the group stage comes the knockout rounds. Round of 32, round of 16, and then let's see, down to the quarters, semis, and final. There is a 3rd place match. What's interesting about Leagues Cup, there are no ties. Each team gets a point if the game is tied after 90 minutes, and then the winner of the subsequent penalty shootout gets an additional point. A regulation win, though, counts for 3 points. All right, now this tournament's actually being broadcast in over 100 countries. There are 77 matches. Thank you, Apple TV, for sending it all out. So that's kind of like the long and the short of Leagues Cup. It actually starts tomorrow, July 26th, or today, July 26th, depending on when you're listening to it. I'm recording this the evening of the 25th, with Atlanta United and DC United kicking things off. Now, the Chicago Fire have their first matchup against Sporting Kansas City, and that is on July 28th. I thought. Did I miss that? I'm trying to look at the schedule. Here it is. Thank you, Seek and Find on the internet, sending me to the bottom result first. Yes, Sporting Kansas City plays the Fire Sunday the 28th, and then the Fire will play Toluca on August 1st. Now, they will be actually hosting that game, the Chicago Fire, in Bridgeview. However, they are the away team. So that's another little quirk about having the Liga MX teams traveling, playing every game in the United States. Sometimes they're the home team, sometimes they're the away team technically, though it always feels like an away match for them. But yeah, so on the 28th, Chicago travels to Kansas City. That's going to be an interesting matchup. We have seen Peter Vermees in Kansas City not really take the Leagues Cup very seriously. Usually they kind of use it as a time to rotate their squad, bring up some SKC2 players, kind of get healthy. And I honestly think the Chicago Fire will probably do the same. Like, they need to get healthy. Look at their center backs. Everyone's going down. As soon as they get back up, someone else goes down. So I think the Chicago Fire, even though this is their best chance for a trophy that everyone is saying, it's still pretty poor chance to win a trophy. You honestly think the Fire are going to be able to one, get out of this group with Toluca and Kansas City, and two, even if they play the best soccer of their lives over the next 3 weeks, are they really getting past teams like Columbus, Cincinnati, LAFC, the Galaxy, your MLS powers, along with Club America, even Toluca in this group was having a good season, Tigres, Monterrey, all the traditional giants, the Gigantes in Mexico. I don't think it's going to happen. So fans of the Fire can say this is their best chance to win a tournament. They should go all in on this. Why? Like, honestly, you have a better chance, I think, of making the MLS playoffs than making a run in Leagues Cup. And just get your guys healthy, get some CF2 guys up. Let everyone treat this tournament almost as an exhibition. Let everyone have some fun with it. Who cares if you win or lose? Get healthy and then get ready for the last 10 games or so of the MLS season. If you can make up those 3 or 4 points to get into one of the play-in games for the MLS playoffs. So that's kind of my thoughts on it, and that's kind of where we're at with the Leagues Cup. Let's see, anything else I wanted to ask here? You can tell I'm just being a little more casual. I just kind of threw together like some notes on a little piece of paper here while I was on my lunch break at work today. With the break in regular MLS action, I didn't have kind of my formal notes and lineups set up. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say about Leagues Cup. The next thing I wanted to mention, Matt Doyle over on MLS at MLSsoccer.com, and on Extra Time, in the most recent episode, he started from the bottom up, looked at the worst team to the best team, so San Jose to Miami, and kind of gave his takes on the clubs, where they're at, what he expects them to do in the summer transfer window and for the second part of the season. So when he came to the Chicago Fire, I actually agreed with a lot of what he said, and it's what we've kind of talked about here as well. So it's nothing earth-shattering, but it does kind of give you a little bit of, I don't know, it makes me feel a little bit justified when you hear someone of Doyle's experience and position in MLS kind of having the same thoughts that we do here on Feed the Fire. At first he started off saying that, the Chicago Fire have had a lot of different formations, different players, and he did say that the Fire are more talented, in his opinion, than the rest of the teams at the bottom of the league, with the exception of New England, he said. So, yeah, I would agree with that. The Chicago Fire probably are a more talented team, and I'm going to pull up the MLS standings here and go through and just kind of see where you would think it would be, right? So, looking at the Eastern Conference, the bottom 5 teams in the East, New England, now Doyle said New England is talented, they're just playing like trash, Chicago, DC United, Nashville, Montreal. Those are your bottom 5 teams in the Eastern Conference. You can make a pretty good argument that the Chicago Fire, with the likes of Hugo Kuipers, Martin Haile Selassie, Brian Gutierrez, who else would be playing along the back line? I was going to say Gutman if healthy, because he's been, a better outside back in MLS over the last few years. But with Rafa Chihos, with a healthy Carlos Turan, with a healthy Wyatt Omsberg, who Doyle said he really likes Wyatt Omsberg, and couldn't figure out why he didn't get more starts under Frank Lopez's head coaching tenure. But you've got Aragona, you've got Chris Brady in goal. He said, from a talent perspective, the Chicago Fire are probably better than Montreal, Nashville, DC United, right? And maybe you give Philly, no, I wouldn't say that, but Philly has been playing very poorly. Maybe this Atlanta United squad without Caleb Wiley, Thiago Almada, Yogos Giacomakis, maybe you could make the argument that Chicago Fire is, at least on paper, a little bit better than the Five Stripes. Maybe. I know the guys at Scarves and Spikes might come after me for that, but you can make the argument, since Atlanta is in a sell mode, though it is being said that they are going to quickly shift into a buy mode in this summer window and try and make a push for the playoffs here, to stay in the playoffs at least. They're in the 9 spot right now. So that's one thing that Doyle pointed out. And if you want to look at the Western Conference, Chicago, on paper, better than San Jose, maybe better than St. Louis, probably not better than Sporting Kansas City on paper, and then, Dallas and Austin, those are tough. But yeah, the problem with the Fire is that they lost to San Jose, lost in New England, lost to DC United, I think. I'll have to look at the schedule to be sure about that. But the Fire are not playing to their talent level. And I think that's one thing Doyle was saying, and part of the problem, like he mentioned, different formations, different players are kind of throwing things off there. He did say Gutierrez is a high-level attacking player in this league. That's pretty big praise from a guy like Matt Doyle. He also went on to say that the club is handicapped by the designated player decisions of the front office. He said Gaston Jimenez is not a starter in this league. And I think that's a great quote from him. And he even went on to say, like, everyone talks about how great of a passer he is and how he's had all this interest from clubs in South America. The problem is there's been no actual offer for Gaston Jimenez from a club in South America. So you can talk about the interest all you want, but apparently they're not interested enough to make an offer, which kind of got back to my prior point of, even if they are interested, they don't value him as highly as the Chicago Fire do. That's like the Fire wanted $10 million for Federico Navarro. Come on. Like, why? That doesn't make any sense. He also went on to say Xherdan Shaqiri is a spectacular designated player. Flop, and everyone knows that. We don't have to get into it. So that's kind of what Doyle had said, and a lot of his analysis of the Chicago Fire on kind of a higher level is on point with what we've been talking about, maybe at a little bit more of a micro level as well. But what he looked forward to say is he looked at the front office's poor signings and said ownership's got to reevaluate the entire thing. And I agreed with Doyle that if this front office does anything more, it could discourage whoever is your next executive front office guy or head coach. So he said that the front office has had their best offseason window this winter that they've had in their entire tenure here. Heights and Pelzer running the Chicago Fire. But that doesn't say much then if that's your best window. Great, you got Kuipers, Acosta, Gutman, Aragoni. Great, perfect. But you still have to atone for signing Shaqiri to such a big deal, to signing Jimenez to multiple designated player deals, to everything, to all the other busts and players that you've brought in and had high salaries. And the other example Doyle gave was, Arnaud Souquet is making like $600,000. That is, he would rather not go to another league and make less money, even though he might be playing at a higher stature league or with a better club or maybe a chance to win something. If it comes down to dollars and cents for a player, and I'm not saying Souquet's that guy, but you know what? At a certain extent, Souquet's making $600,000. Actually, this was something that I heard Tim Hotza talking about over on the Hotcast. He was a guest host over there. So, Tim, thank you for bringing this to our attention, that if a player's making the money they're making in MLS, why would they go somewhere else? Why would they agree to a mutual termination? Why would they agree to some sort of renegotiation or a sign and transfer or whatever could be happening, behind the scenes with agents and negotiations? The Chicago Fire have not hit on those mid to high level salary guys. They've hit on guys like a Jonathan Dean or their homegrowns who can fill in and play decently until they figure out their DP level, their TAM level players, but they just haven't been doing it. But yeah, getting back to Doyle's points and getting back to stuff that we've talked about here on the show, that if this front office is allowed to go out and sign a bunch of players this summer window, or if this front office is announcing that they're hiring some sort of coach or doing some coaching search, or whoever it gets leaked that they're looking at one coach in particular. The Greg Berhalter kind of chatter has died down a little bit. I don't think that was ever substantiated by anyone in the club or in MLS. But if this front office goes out and makes some more of these poor, high salary players signings, no coach is going to want to come here. No executive is going to want to come here and be saddled by that. So those are things that Doyle was looking at, and things that I think we all can agree with through the course of it. So now looking at looking at Olympic soccer here, we have seen the United States play their first men and women game with two completely different results. Back on July 24th, the U.S. men's team played France and were soundly beaten by France 3-0. A lot of people were saying that it was a good game, and then the U.S. just gave up those 2 late goals. Well, yeah, that's what happened in the World Cup too. It was a great game until they gave up those 3 goals to Netherlands and lost 3-1, right? So I really don't like when you do that. That seems like such a moral victory, and when you get to a World Cup, a Gold Cup, an Olympics tournament, moral victories don't count. They don't mean much. Keep those for training, keep those for friendlies, keep those for qualifications, and for teaching and learning. These tournaments, it's the time to take your whatever you've taught and put it into effect. And the United States did not really put much into effect in that game versus France. And again, I'll say it again. I think Chris Brady would have performed much better than Patrick Schulte in this match. The U.S. women played today, the 25th. They opened up against Zambia with a 3-0 victory. That was helped along by an early Zambia red card, so the U.S. were up a player for a large portion of that match, and hopefully they were able to use that to kind of rotate some players and get into a tournament groove where you can't go all out. They secured that victory. They didn't try to pour it on and win 5-6-7-0. They're just kind of conserving themselves for later on in the tournament. Now the men's tournament continues with a match against New Zealand on July 27th. And the women's next match is July 28th against Germany, who got a big win today against Australia. Wow, the Australian women did not look like the team that they were expected to be. I watched about 15-20 minutes of this match on my lunch break today, and Germany could have been up 2-0 in the first 10 minutes, but for botching a few final touches and a few shots. And they ended up going on to beat Australia 3-0. Sam Kerr was not available for the Australian team, and that has been a big hole that they've been trying to fill, so the reporting has gone. But yeah, that's who the U.S. women will take on next, Germany, and likely it'll be one of those two teams. Whoever wins this game wins the group. The men then complete their group stage against Guinea on July 30th, and the United States should beat New Zealand and Guinea, and then should be able to move on to the knockouts as the second place team in their group behind France. And that is, I think that was kind of the expectation when the groups were picked. Now, it's the Olympics, it's a tournament, it's world football here. It's not like New Zealand and Guinea are some sort of slackers, right? They won their respective qualification. They're here for a reason, so the United States can't take it lightly. Even though they're expected to win, these now are must-win matches for them, to be cliche for a minute. And then the women finish their tournament on July 31st. I'm sorry, their group stage of their tournament on July 31st with a match against Australia. So hopefully the American women can get a result against Germany, get a victory over Australia, win that group, and then move on and have a better path throughout the knockouts. So that is kind of everything I just wanted to touch on, put a little something out there for everybody. Thank you to Skira Icelandic Spring Water, our sponsor here. Get out to your local 7-Eleven, grab a bottle or 2 or 3 or 4 of Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Think of us as you enjoy that cool water on a hot summer day as you're watching soccer, screaming, supporting your favorite team. Remember to follow along on social media at Glasshouse Soccer. Email me, glasshouseSoccer@gmail.com, if you just want to talk about soccer, life. If you're out there and want to work on a sponsorship, we are looking for additional sponsors to come in. And yeah, that is everything I wanted to say. So Fire fans, enjoy the League's Cup, enjoy all the Olympic action, and let's go Fire.